Hello and welcome to Reggie'sTake.com, podcast number 28. The Doctor is in, and Marvel's latest movie has been given a clean bill of health as Doctor Strange is now in theaters. And with the help of my guests, we will make you believe as we give you our take. Mel Gibson, the director of Hacksaw Ridge, has criticized violence in Hollywood films. In particular, one studio, we'll tell you which one. Joe Manganiello says Ben Affleck's Batman movie will surprise people, and we'll talk about what he had to say. Frank Miller, a legend in the world of comics, says if he were to make a Batman movie, his focus would be on the mission and forget something else entirely. What is it? Bryan Singer has made a decision not to return to the franchise he's worked on off and on since 2000. What's next for the franchise? Fox seems to be jumping into the deep end of the pool as the studios announced it's working on the third movie before the second movie has even begun production. Crazy. Finally, a beloved television family will be around a little while longer as it looks to set even more records. Joining me today is James from the True Believers as we give the following a thorough examination that may make our audience need to turn their heads and cough. Nurse, gloves please. James, welcome.
Thank you. It's truly great to be here.
How you doing, man?
Fantastic. It's great. Everything's huge. I love it. Everybody loves me. Nobody loves your podcast more than me, Reggie. And I do mean that.
Well, we're just looking to make this podcast great again. Oh, wow. We went there.
We did. It's a little different. We could probably go there. It's all right.
All right. A few things have gone on. Marvel's released their latest movie, Doctor Strange.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. No, I'm kidding. Of course I've seen it.
I know you said you've seen it. I just saw it yesterday as of this recording. So give me your high point.
The movie is visually stunning. In this day and age, it's kind of hard to be visually stunning, but this one, there were moments where he's floating through space, the camera keeps there, and of course it's all CGI, but the camera keeps him there and is still, and if you watch, he gets so tiny as he goes away. I just couldn't believe it, how long they would just let that go. That's really quite a feat.
The whole fight scene going on, and all the city is
in London or whatever was that? No, that was New York.
New York,
yeah.
That was just mind blowing.
Oh my gosh!
In the sense of trying to keep your head. Okay, which way is up? Which way is
down? Because it'll change. It'll go from horizontal to vertical, and it really does kind of mess with you a little bit. It was definitely a visual feat.
Oh yeah,
to be sure.
Did you like it as an origin story?
Here's the deal. When I was watching it, I thought that as an origin story, as a movie, I was like, well, it's okay. It kind of jumps really fast. It's like, okay, here's the origin. He's got a girlfriend. Now he's hurt. Now he does his thing. Now he's got powers. And I kind of felt like it went really fast. But the more I thought of it after I watched the movie, the more I actually liked it. Because how many origin stories have we seen at this point?
Quite a few.
And this movie was pretty much honest. They're like, yes, he's going to have a girlfriend. She's not going to be as integral as Pepper Potts. That's the way it is. And he's going to learn some things like they all do. There you go. Let's just get to the point already.
Yeah.
The more I thought of it, the more I actually liked that.
In my mind, they didn't waste the audience's time in getting to their story.
If this movie came out 8 years ago, like Iron Man, I would have wanted more story in it. But at this point, it's like, let's be honest, all superhero stories are kind of the same. Let's just get to the point. So I think it actually did a pretty good job with that.
And I liked the fact that Doctor Strange, before he became Doctor Strange, when he was at the beginning of the movie, when he's practicing medicine, they're showing him being a surgeon and all that stuff. He really, to me, came across as an arrogant ass.
Yeah.
At least his character did.
Yeah.
Now you could tell Benedict Cumberbatch kind of put his little bit of humor into it a little bit here and there. So even though you knew he was like, wow, this guy's just really a major ass, but at the same time he almost was likable, even though he was an ass. I like that. I don't know. To me, he reminded me a little bit almost like of Tony Stark to a certain extent, the way they set him up.
This movie, in a lot of ways, was a mix between the first Iron Man and the first Harry Potter. It's like Iron Man goes to magic school. And
then with all the bending and everything, it also almost kind of, even though I never really seen Inception, but, it kind of gives you that.
You've never seen Inception?
No, I've never seen Inception.
Oh, my gosh. We're going to have a movie night. Inception's actually a pretty good movie. I really like Christopher Nolan. I like Inception. It's a good movie. I know a lot of people kind of rag on it because it doesn't make sense. Whatever. No movie makes sense.
Sometimes a movie that doesn't make sense initially when you watch it, sometimes it's almost worth reviewing again and again.
Exactly, and that's one of those
movies. Figure it out.
Like it's a good movie. It's worth watching.
I read something. It was probably a good month before the movie actually hit theaters, and they said that one of those critics said that he'd gotten to see the movie early, of course, and they said that, if you didn't know that this was already going to be attached as part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and you took out one small scene in the movie, you could really go in and watch the movie and not really realize it's attached to the Marvel Universe. Because there's only that one little scene, that librarian, not the one that got his head cut off, but the other one, which I kind of liked that character. Wong or whatever it is, where he's like, where the Avengers protect the physical universe, we're more and if you take that entire line out, you would really not know this is connected to the Marvel
actually
universe.
I thought that line kind of sucked, honestly. I know this is a Marvel movie. You don't have to remind me.
And they probably could have taken it out and been fine, but at the same time, I think they also wanted to remind their audience, that it is part.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. It's marketing.
Yeah.
It was a really good movie. I really liked Wong in that movie, by the way.
I liked there was humor in the movie, but it wasn't forced. At least it didn't seem forced to me. The humor came out of what was going on and the interactions between the characters, and it wasn't some lame-ass joke just shoved in there for no reason.
Yeah.
That made it enjoyable.
That was always something Joss Whedon did both as a strength and a weakness. He does a lot of jokes that seem almost inappropriate for the movie, with Avengers and Age of Ultron. And that's the way he does with Buffy and everything else. When it works, it works. Avengers, everything, just about, maybe one or two lines kind of sucked, but in Avengers, pretty much everything is really funny. Age of Ultron, it was a bit much.
It got a little tiring after a while.
So that's always been the strength and the weakness of Joss Whedon. Thing is, he played it so well in Avengers that's kind of been like a staple for a while. And I think this movie finally toned it down a bit, which is good.
I really thought it hit the right tone between being an origin story, being a connected movie to the Marvel Universe. It didn't throw anything too majorly in your face.
Yeah.
It gave you what you wanted. And I really thought the movie moved along fairly fast.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, I know it's however long it is, but it didn't seem as long as what the clock said it was.
Yeah.
So it's like, wow, this movie just moves fast. And that fight between him and Mads Mikkelsen character, almost middle of the movie, I like that fight.
I did too.
It moved to the point of he was still trying to figure himself out, his powers out, and him struggling to keep up against Mads' character. And it really worked in my book for me. I really enjoyed that fight. It almost harkened back to me as an old-fashioned fist fight in a certain way, but it didn't have like a fight you'd see like if it was Iron Man or if it was Thor. It didn't seem quite so one-sided in a certain sense. I was thoroughly entertained by the movie.
Yeah, I do agree. There was a sense of danger for your character. We don't get that as much in these later superhero movies. We used to, like with Spider-Man 1 and 2 and with Batman Begins, we did used to get that sense of danger, but we typically don't anymore, which is something I've noticed.
I have a concern with Marvel pulling Doctor Strange into their cinematic universe moving forward with Avengers, with the Infinity War movies, but I'll get to that here in a second.
Sure.
What I was going to ask you was the rest of the characters. Mads Mikkelsen's character and the guy who played Mordo. Did you like those two characters?
You know what? I did, actually. And, I know people keep saying that Marvel has a villain's problem. I think Marvel is more focused on the heroes.
Right.
And you look at comic book heroes, most of the times, the ones that have the best villains are obviously Batman, Superman, Spider-Man.
Or really probably your three best superheroes.
Pretty much, as far as villains
go.
Yeah, Rogues Gallery, I should say. X-Men has Magneto, who's great. Fantastic Four has Doctor Doom.
It seems like after those three, you get a lot of superhero characters that have one really good villain. Yeah. But then after that, it really drops off dramatically.
And none of the Avengers characters had great villains in the comics. I'm not going to say that.
There are exceptions to it.
There are exceptions, and they're not as great as like a Batman or a Spider-Man villain, is what I'm going to say, for the most part. There are exceptions to the rule, obviously.
And I think Marvel's, though, never really shied away, other than possibly Loki. Marvel's never really strayed from their entire, if you really look at it, their entire string of movies. The hero has always been the forefront.
Yeah.
And although we've gotten a great villain in Loki, we've never had a villain that's just stepped up and, let's say, overshadowed the movie like you would get like a Heath Ledger and a Joker.
Maybe Ultron. Maybe Ultron. Ultron didn't go over 100% with
No.
everyone. I liked him. I thought he was a very, very interesting character.
Would Ultron have been more likable if he'd have been more, say, a human type of character than rather than like a computer generated
I think the bigger problem,
mechanical type of character?
I think what they should have done is kept him more mechanical looking.
He
If you remember,
he
like
became
his
sleeker
intro,
and sleeker.
and his introduction is scary. Like, that is creepy. That weird
Amalgamation of all different, of all the different.
And then right after that, they turn him into this like
Sleek.
CGI. Yeah, they should have waited for that until the end.
The very final battle is
yeah.
when he came out.
That's
sleek.
what I think. Like, they should have kept just that terrifying, emotionless visage.
Mm-hmm.
And just left it. Like, I think that would have been a lot scarier. I'm not really sure why they went that direction. I think the idea of a teenage, super intelligent robot who's super crazy and yet has the emotional maturity of a teenager is really interesting and really scary. The other problem is the movie was like so bogged down with like other stuff that wasn't really that important, that I think they should have focused more on Ultron, I think, and just let him be the star, in my opinion. Because we already had an Avengers movie where they were the star, and really the first Avengers movie, Loki's kind of the star of that movie. I think they should have done that. And I did like the farm scene and stuff, but they could have cut it a little bit. I didn't need to see Samuel L. Jackson pop in for no reason and then leave.
That would have been, I think, almost taking me out of the story. Same way where I saw it was all going to be kind of, you got to the point where you realize the rest of the movie is kind of going to take place in New York, although it did move over to Hong Kong there, though, for the very end battle. But I was afraid at some point you're going to get Tony Stark to pop in there. And that really
Are you talking about Doctor Strange?
Yeah, on the Doctor Strange. I was really afraid you're going to have Tony Stark pop in as a cameo somewhere in the middle of that movie, and that really would have taken me out of it.
They really did a good job of not doing that.
Yeah.
There is a scene where, spoiler alert, post-credits. And post-credits, you can kind of do whatever you want. Thor pops up in the post-credits.
Right. I was going to ask you about that here in a second, because that was also something else I had to ask you about. But this one character towards the end, when they were battling there in Hong Kong, and he did that time loop thing up in space.
Oh,
Dormammu. Exactly, and you may know more about him than I do. I only know from what I've read here briefly. Exactly what is that character?
Well, let me explain. Dormammu is a multi-dimensional being from another universe. I know in the movie they kept saying it was from another dimension. I wish they would have just said another universe, but whatever. That's nitpicking. His universe, he is basically one with his universe, essentially. He's basically an insanely powerful being. I mean, he's basically a living embodiment of his own universe. But when he comes to our universe, or rather their universe, the Marvel universe, when he goes to a different universe, he becomes more fragile. He's still very powerful, but you can kill him when he goes in there. I love his design. He's one of Steve Ditko's designs. His face is just fire in the comics.
I did see a picture of that when I was kind of looking him up earlier this afternoon.
Yeah.
I was also reading somewhere on another, I kind of looked at something that I stayed away from before I saw the movie. The chances of them actually using that character again in Doctor Strange, or you think the one time in this particular movie was good enough for that character?
Look, I'm not the biggest Doctor Strange fan. There's only a handful of villains that I know. One of them is Dormammu, and the other one is Baron Mordo.
Now that brings me to the very end post-credit scene, which I found it funny at the theater. Everyone stayed through the whole, usual. It got to that mid-credit scene, and as soon as that mid-credit scene was done, everyone else in the theater just filed right on out. And I'm thinking to myself, where are you guys going?
Yep.
The relationship with Mordo and Doctor Strange in
that
this movie
was incredible. Was
there enough of I don't know if I want to say friendship is the right word, or enough of a working relationship between those two characters, at least in this movie, to make Mordo now an enemy of Doctor Strange?
Mordo... Honestly, after this movie, Mordo could be their next Loki.
Now, I know in the comics, those two are enemies.
Yeah.
I was kind of getting at is, was there enough?
I honestly think that the way they did this movie, where they start him up as a friend.
Kind of training him also.
Yeah. That is really... It's not entirely original. I'll get to that in a minute. But it's really neat. And I really think that's them looking at and saying, okay, like people keep saying we have a villain problem. We need another Loki. Let's do it with Mordo.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think they could. And now he's going to be different. I love the idea that at the end of the movie,
now
here's the deal. In the comics, there was no friendship between the two.
They were just enemies, right?
First issue of Doctor Strange, he goes to meet the Ancient One. The Ancient One is male in the comic, by the way, and the Ancient One tells him one of his students is going to betray him. There you go. That's it. Mordo's the betrayer. Mordo is also white in the comics.
Mm-hmm.
I thought changing his race made so much sense because it never made sense to me that we have this ancient Eastern religion and the only other main character that's part of this religion just happens to be the other white guy. It's like, really? I really like the actor who played him. I'm not sure if I'm familiar with him in anything else. I might be, but I really liked him. I think that they have a really good future with him. Of course, Mads, I always just call him Lashif. What do you call, what's his name?
Mads Mikkelsen.
Mads Mikkelsen. Of course, he was really good, too. He was kind of just a typical, like, mwahaha henchman type of character, but he did it well. I also love how his thing apparently is always having blood coming out of his eyes, because he did in Casino Royale also. He had blood coming out of his eyes, and on this movie he's got like weird digital purple blood.
Yeah.
And his other thing is getting defeated really early because he did in Casino Royale also. Like always like the main villain of that movie, but he's the henchman in a greater universe. It's kind of interesting.
The guy who played Mordo was in 12 Years a Slave.
Oh, really? Okay.
Solomon Northup. It looks like he's also appeared in the movie Salt with Angelina Jolie. He's done a versatile bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
He hasn't done a lot, but yeah, I liked him.
He was really good.
I liked him in
He was
that role.
really good. And I'm excited to see where they go with him. I really like the idea that, in the comics, he was just a typical, like, he betrayed the master, blah, blah, blah. But in this movie, they really did a good job of making it much deeper. He was the one who actually felt, and he's really not wrong in this, he felt betrayed by the Ancient One.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of did betray him. She really lied to him about the whole religion that they follow was based on a lie. She was manipulating part of this religion that she was not sharing with anyone else. Mm-hmm. A very scary part of that religion. And at the end of the movie, at the post-credits scenes, when he takes that guy's powers away, it's like, again, he's not really wrong. Like, this guy is using all of these crazy interdimensional magical powers for selfish means. For himself, maybe he shouldn't be able to use those. It's really kind of interesting. Like, what they're doing with that character, they're really making him not so much evil, but just maybe a little bit more, I don't know. It's a very interesting take on the character, and I really like it. And I really like that they're kind of doing something a little different with a villain.
It's funny, I just noticed here that the guy who played Wong, the actor, is Benedict Wong.
Really?
Yeah, that's kind of funny.
That is funny.
Now, going back to the mid-credit scene where you see Doctor Strange, Benedict Cumberbatch's character, talking to Chris Hemsworth, Thor. Doctor Strange is concerned about Loki. Thor obviously makes the mention that he's looking for Odin. I got the impression that Doctor Strange was willing to help Thor look for Odin, or at least help him point him in the right direction. What do you think the chances are that Benedict Cumberbatch now pops in as a cameo in Thor?
Oh, I think it's very high. I think Thor is going to be about Thor, Hulk,
and Doctor Strange.
That's going to be awesome. That's going to be a good movie. There's always been, the funny part is there's always been a really interesting relationship between Thor and Hulk. But on the flip side, there's always been a really, really interesting relationship between Hulk and Doctor Strange.
Really?
Doctor Strange, Hulk, and the Silver Surfer are the original three Defenders.
Aha.
Then Valkyrie joined them. I'm not sure why she's not in a movie. She's just Valkyries were like angels in Norse mythology, but Valkyrie is one of Thor's friends. She's a warrior. I'm trying to think. I think there was another one that joined after that. And then the Defenders just became what they call a non-group. It's just whoever's in it. Which is really odd, but
obviously It's been announced, and it was really no surprise. It really shouldn't come surprise to anybody that they announced that Benedict Cumberbatch will appear in the two-part Infinity War movies. Although only the first movie is going to be called Infinity War, they haven't announced what the second name of the second movie will be because they said that'll give it away too easily if they do now. But I was going to ask you, one, what do you think his role or how much a role he'll play in Infinity War movie, and B, I have a certain amount of fear with him being in the Infinity War movie, which I know it would be stupid not to have him in there. But at the same time, knowing what Doctor Strange can do, I'm almost afraid that at the beginning of the Infinity War movie, if they say kill off a major character that we're already familiar with at the beginning to bring everyone together, that Doctor Strange at some point will later on undo that to bring that person back.
That's a good point.
You know what I'm saying? So the whole issue, Marvel's not willing to kill off somebody. Oh, yes, he's dead. Oh, no, he's not later on.
Yeah.
Is a slight concern on my part.
Well, to address yours, I'm going to address B first. That's a very good concern that you have. Doctor Strange does have the Deus Ex Machina powers of whatever he wants.
Oh, I guess we should mention that we did get introduced to the fifth Infinity Stone.
We did,
and on the it's in that little
eye
thing.
of. It's the eye of. It's a really popular relic. The Eye of Agamotto, which is along with the Wand of Watum, is also like they're really powerful relics in Doctor Strange. He's always using the Eye of Agamotto, and now I shall use the Wand of Watum by the hoary host of Haggarth. And yeah, and then like in the movie, he also mentioned the boots. I don't know what the boots are. The boots of something, and that's like beyond me.
I did get a kick out of the cape in the movie.
Oh yes, I love the cape. I love the cape. Reminded me of the carpet on Aladdin.
It almost had an attitude.
Yeah, no, it had its own personality,
and I loved it.
Yeah,
I loved it.
I did too. The cape was great. The Eye of Agamotto, by the way, has a cameo in the very first Thor movie.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
Where?
It's in Odin's Chamber of Relics, along with the Casket of Eternal Winters. This is really nerdy stuff, by the way, but yeah.
Now you're going to have to make me go back and watch that again.
The Casket of Eternal Winters, and then
now
if you look at it, the Eye of Agamotto is there.
Now, is that before young Thor becomes big Thor, or is that after that point?
That's after.
That's after.
So the theory now is, theory A is maybe the Eye of Agamotto that is in Odin's Chamber of Relics is in fact a replica, a fake.
Gotcha.
Theory B is that maybe somebody from Asgard stole the Eye of Agamotto and left it on Earth for the Ancient One to find. Or theory C is they're just movies, so who gives a shit?
Getting back to my two-part question that I asked, and you said you're going to answer part B first.
Yeah, what was the other one? What was the other two-part?
The first part of that was A.
I did answer part B already. Like, you are right to be concerned.
Right. Part A was where he'll fit and how much they will use him, not use him.
If you ever get a chance to read the Infinity War, Doctor Strange is actually a pretty big character in that. So, he does deserve to be in that movie. He in the comics,
I never doubted that he wouldn't be.
Yeah.
I was just curious, and being that you do get someone like Benedict Cumberbatch, who seems to be extremely popular right now as far as people wanting him in their movies, you don't sign someone like him unless you intend to use him thoroughly throughout your universe. But I was just curious as your thought of how big or how little or how much he'll play into that story, considering you're going to have, with Tony Stark and Robert Downey Jr. and all that, where you got so many big names in there to fit it into those movies and give equal justice to everybody.
None of these Marvel movies have followed their storyline to a T. In fact, most of them follow it very loosely. That being said, in the comic, Doctor Strange is kind of the one. He's the one who feels the distress from Silver Surfer. So he finds Silver Surfer and brings him back to health. And Silver Surfer was the one who explained to Doctor Strange that Thanos has found the Infinity Gauntlet. And then he starts killing people throughout the universe, like, instantly. And Doctor Strange and Silver Surfer are the ones that really are kind of at the forefront. They're the ones that bring the other heroes
together.
So I could really see
Doctor Strange being maybe the peacemaker between Stark and
now,
and
since since Silver Surfer isn't going to be in it, I feel like...
because that was my next question. You caused me to want to ask you. You said Silver Surfer because obviously Marvel and Disney don't have access to Silver Surfer because of Fox. Who becomes then that?
Well, I think it's going to be Vision. I think Vision is actually going to take the dual roles of both Silver Surfer and Adam Warlock. Adam Warlock is actually the one who had the Infinity Stone in his forehead.
Okay.
Adam Warlock is also, I believe, the son of Thanos. I could be wrong there. It gets pretty complicated, but if he's not a son of Thanos, he's somehow related to him, and I don't remember how. There's actually a cameo of Adam Warlock in Guardians of the Galaxy. His cocoon is in the collector's store. I don't know what you call it. His menagerie. I honestly think Vision is going to be kind of a mashup of Silver Surfer and Adam Warlock. We know that Fox has the rights to Silver Surfer. I don't know about Adam Warlock, but Adam Warlock has always been closely related to Fantastic Four, so Fox may have the rights to him too. Also, nobody really knows who Adam Warlock is, so like they might as well just make it Vision. See, in the comics, Vision's his jewel on his forehead, that wasn't really anything special. It was just a laser. It was a laser shooter, is what it was. Whereas Adam Warlock is the one who had the Mind Stone.
So you think that's the reason why maybe they put the Mind Stone in Vision?
Yeah, because I don't think
they kind of knew they had.
Yeah, they're just given the role of Adam. Because at that point, when I saw Ultron, I knew they were going to give the role of Adam Warlock to Vision for the future movies. Now that Doctor Strange is around, I think they're also going to give Silver Surfer's role to
Vision as well.
To Vision. Now, I could be wrong, but I think that's kind of what they're going for.
Well,
Speaking
cool.
of, I would love to, if Marvel ever gets the rights to Fantastic Four again, I would love to see Silver Surfer in a movie. Let me bring something up real quick.
Go ahead.
Do you remember on Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer, how at the end, Silver Surfer flies up and talks to Galactus, and it's just a big cloud in space, and it's boring and stupid?
Okay, I might. It's been a while since I've seen that movie, so it's possible.
This scene with Doctor Strange talking to Dormammu, to me, felt like what that should have been years ago. Yeah, we're not afraid to show this stuff. Like, I mean, it's cool stuff. So there you go. I mean, that's all there is to it. If you don't really remember Fantastic Four,
I've seen The Rise of Silver Surfer.
It's a bad movie.
I've seen The Rise of Silver Surfer, but it's been so long, I haven't really rewatched
it. I mean, I would love to see Galactus in a Marvel movie. Galactus is a great villain. Hopefully someday Fox will go ahead and concede and sell Fantastic Four over to Marvel.
You hope.
They need to. They're not doing anything else with them.
Touching on the Thor Ragnarok, since we saw Doctor Strange talking to Thor, I almost want to believe that maybe Loki didn't necessarily kill Odin. Maybe he just put him somewhere else and erased his memory.
Now I'm wondering.
Erased his memory where he doesn't know who he is.
I'm wondering now. I don't know. It's weird. I assume that he killed him in the second one, but...
Or maybe Marvel wanted you to believe that that's what he did, but they really had... Maybe they didn't even think that far ahead. They just wrote it and figured, we'll figure it out later. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Of course, we don't have to wait long for... Thor Ragnarok.
When does that come out?
November of 2017. That's the second of their two movies next year. Guardians of the well, actually, technically, if you want to count Spider-Man: Homecoming,
it counts.
Because you got Guardians of the Galaxy in April or May. You've got Homecoming for the Spider-Man movie, June or July. I don't remember the exact date. And then you got Thor Ragnarok in November.
Their batting average is just phenomenal. They don't have a bad movie.
Not
at
yet.
all.
Sooner or later, it's probably going to happen.
It's going to happen. And when it happens, the world will act like it's ending.
Yes.
Like, they'll be like, they're done now. They suck now. It's over. Blah, blah.
Kill the franchise. Yeah. Any last thoughts on Doctor Strange before I move on with the next bit of agenda?
I can't think of anything offhand, but I do want to reiterate how much of just a visual experience that movie is. It's a really good movie.
Go see it, and if you go see it, stay through the credits, people. What would you give
it? At this point, we can't... Oh, my God. Like all Marvel movies, I'd give it probably an A-. Okay. Probably an A-, maybe a B+ if I'm in a bad mood. The more I think of the movie, the more yes. Like, I mean, yeah, when I saw it, I felt like the story was kind of rushed, but the more I thought of it, it was like, no, they're just getting the cliches out of the way.
Right.
And when I thought of it that way, I was like, you know what? This movie was actually pretty good. So I'd give it an A or an A minus.
And just thinking, one of my favorite parts was him doing the battle as his spirit in the operating room, where his girlfriend was trying to save him.
Yeah.
And when he figured out when she did the paddles to restart his heart, and it gave, and he's like, turn it up and do it again. What? Do it again. I thought that was pretty funny.
That was good, yeah.
And I also thought the part where he talked to the Ancient One when they're both kind of in that spirit
and time is like so slowed down. Yeah.
To me, that was almost like the ending of Act 2 and the beginning of Act 3 for that movie.
It really was.
Because that's when I think he figured out a lot of things by just what she said.
Yeah.
He was able just to listen and realize what he had to do or what he needed to be doing, and it propelled the movie to the rest of its conclusion.
It really was a good movie. It really was.
Kind of going to stick a little bit here with the Marvel thing briefly.
Ugh, I hate those movies.
Yeah, I know. Just a pain in the ass. Mel Gibson, his new movie Hacksaw Ridge debuted the same weekend as Doctor Strange. By the way, that does look like a really good movie from what I've seen, at least in trailers. Of course, and again, I like watching those type of movies about, or anything really dealing with World War II. I find it a fascinating part of history. But in a recent interview Mel Gibson did with the Washington Post while he was out promoting his Hacksaw Ridge movie, he criticized other Hollywood films for the way they present, or as he described, violence without consequences. Okay. And during his interview, the actor/director actually pointed a finger to the Marvel films, which I found interesting. And if you really listen to this, I almost want to laugh at this to a certain extent. He said, quote, "To talk about the violent question, look at any Marvel movie. They're more violent than anything that I've done. But in my movies, you give a shit about the characters, which makes it matter more. That's all I'm going to say."
Let me address this in 2 points.
Point
one, Mr. Gibson, Passion of the Christ is basically torture porn. Have you seen Passion of the Christ?
No.
Pretty hard to watch. Like, it's insane.
Well, and he's also promoting Hacksaw Ridge, which is a World War II movie.
Right.
And from what I've seen of that trailer, that can't be a PG movie itself. I mean, it is a hard R, but it's a war movie. And I've heard it's pretty much probably like one of the best war movies since like Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
And Saving Private Ryan was pretty damn violent.
Yeah. Now, never mind Apocalypto, which he also directed, which was super violent.
Right.
Also, never mind movies he starred in, such as the Mad Max series and
the first Lethal Weapon.
And I was just getting there. Lethal Weapon. Talk about violence without consequences. That one does have it.
Now, it's funny that he's pointing the finger at Marvel when, if you really want to, he's actually calling the kettle black.
No, yeah, he is.
And it's like, dude, you can't.
Now, I am going to.
Then again, it is Mel Gibson.
The second. Yes, I am going to go to the second point, which I do agree with him that there is, and this is not anything new. In fact, this is a very old Hollywood problem that we've actually gotten better of over the years. This is, when I say old, I'm talking about the old westerns from the 40s, 50s, all these movies, action movies from that decade, from decades past, since movies went to talkies. Basically, is violence without consequence. Yes, there is, like, you see people get shot. In old movies, there's almost no blood. In movies, you might see some blood. Same way with
the westerns in the 50s and 60s.
Right.
All those gun battles, people getting shot right in front of each other, no blood.
Yeah. And see, like, that is actually, and there is growing belief that that type of violence is actually more unhealthy to children than gore.
Right, because see the guns, the guns fired, no blood. Oh, well, the guns aren't harmful.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, he's not wrong, and sure, there is a lot of that to some degree in the Marvel movies. I do agree, but
at the same time, look at what he's also done himself.
Exactly. I mean, there's also a point. Do we need to watch Jesus get whipped for an hour, for 3 hours? Like, I mean, it's bad.
Well, he was on Stephen Colbert here recently, and he said he's planning on doing a sequel to The Passion of the Christ.
I heard. Like, what would the sequel be?
I have no idea. Yeah, I think he's talking about wanting to do him rising is what he's wanting to do, but that's a whole nother podcast. So I just found his remarks strange.
I really do hate it when these artists, David Cronenberg, did something similar 4 years ago. And by the way, I'm a huge Cronenberg fan. Mm-hmm. Huge. And I'm a huge Mel Gibson fan, too. But Cronenberg said when The Dark Knight Rises came out, he was like, everyone keeps saying it's artistic, but it's not a work of art. It's just another guy in a cape. Okay, you may not be wrong. Like, sure, it is another guy in a cape movie. And maybe we do stamp the word art in our society on more things than it deserves. But David Cronenberg, of all people, he did The Fly with Jeff Goldblum. He did Videodrome. He did God, what's that weird movie where that lady has all those like bug kids? The Brood.
Oh, okay.
He did Dead Ringers. All of his movies are great, but all of his movies are very gory, very body horror is what they call it, because someone's human form is being morphed into something else, like Jeff Goldblum becoming a fly. In The Brood, when she undoes her robe and you see an egg sac coming out of her, that is like the grossest thing I've ever seen.
That'll
It's
kill
like
the mood real quick.
he's a genre director. He does horror. I know that he's heard people call his movies garbage and not art and all this. Why is he then doing that to Christopher Nolan's Batman?
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it when they do that.
Well, see,
and again, I'm a big fan of Mel Gibson. I'm a really big fan of David Cronenberg, but it's like, just stop doing that.
It just made me wonder because he specifically pointed out Marvel.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, out of all the movie studios that we have, why did you pick out Marvel in particular? And the only thing I could come to, at least in my brain, was he's got something against the superhero genre films.
I think it's more he's just being holier than thou. And it's like, violence needs to be super violent in order for it to mean something. And it's like, man, get over yourself. Just keep making good movies. We'll watch them, okay? But
as I said, that's the only thing I could come to the conclusion was he just has something against the superhero
that's
genre.
the thing when artists basically are being pots calling the kettle black. It does bother me. You guys should know more than anyone else what it's like to have your work criticized as being a genre piece of work. Yeah. So why are you doing it to others?
Joe Manganiello, who's going to be playing Deadshot in the new Batman movie, which is supposed to start production sometime first half of 2017.
Is it Deadshot? No, it's Deathstroke.
Deathstroke. I'm sorry, I said Deathshot.
That's okay.
They both start with a D. So,
yeah.
Hey, in an interview recently, he said, when I met Ben, we sat down and we talked about, the role. We talked about the movie, his take, a fresh take, but I think the audience is going to be surprised because it's a road that no one's really gone down that's completely integral to, Batman. And I think it's going to be refreshing, but at the same time, completely familiar. But it's going to take this franchise in a different direction that I think a lot of people are going to be really happy about. It's going to be gritty and action-packed and overall and cerebral and all those elements that people love about Batman. I saw that statement and I saw it's like, okay, the guy ain't going to say anything bad because A,
doesn't it sound like The Dark Knight?
Yeah, it sounds like A, The Dark Knight, B, Batman is always kind of been gritty to a certain extent.
Yeah. It was one thing for people 5 years ago, which isn't that long ago, but when The Dark Knight came out, it would be one thing for someone to say something like that. But now it's like, no, we've already seen that.
I don't know what you could do differently with Batman that A, we haven't either already seen with the Christopher Nolan series, or even maybe the first two Tim Burton movies,
which were good movies.
Which I'll ignore the other two. But I just don't see if there's something different. Now, if they've come up with something unique and different that is still gritty and will make us think, wow, how come no one's thought of that before in a Batman movie, then great. But I just see the statement as just an actor promoting what his next project is, and he's not wanting to upset his, quote, boss, since Ben Affleck is basically going to be directing the movie as well. I like Batman, and there's rumors that part of this Batman movie, because they said you're supposed to see, quote, a lot of villains in this movie at some point. There's rumored is that part of this movie is going to be him stuck in Arkham Asylum, kind of like some of those video games that were done, which could be a fun thing to do. But at the same time, it's like, well, it's already been done in the video games. Yeah. But I don't know. I'm looking forward to seeing the Batman movie. I liked what he did with Batman in Batman v Superman. I'm just tired of all this talk about the Batman movie. Just let's get this thing in production. Let's get going so we can see something. I like Batman. I want to see the Batman movie. I think the Batman movie may be the crown jewel of the DC universe, but
could be.
I just wish they kind of get on with it and move on. I don't know what your opinion is.
It's more or less the same.
Yeah, I kind of thought. We're going to move on to something different. Well, actually, we're going to stay in the same.
Are we going to go somewhere different where this podcast has never been before? Are we going to go dark and gritty?
No, but we are going to go to Frank Miller.
Oh, okay.
I guess a better thing to talk about Batman. He did an interview with Variety.
He's not crazy these days.
No. I like what he had to say here. At least I found these remarks a lot more interesting to talk about than what we just talked about, which we really, really didn't talk about. But anyway, he did an interview with Variety, and he was asked, you reinvented Batman with the groundbreaking Batman The Dark Knight Returns comic in 1986, which influenced every Batman movie ever since. If you had your way, where would you take Batman movie franchise today? And he said, my dream would be to make it a much smaller, to lose the toys, and to focus more on the mission, and to use the city a great deal more, because he's got a loving relationship with the city he's protecting, and unlike Superman, his connection to crime is intimate. It has been ever since his parents were murdered, and he defeats criminals with his hands, so it would be a different take. But it will never be in my hands because it would not be a good place to make toys from. There wouldn't be a line of toys. And I kind of like what he said. Because,
I've actually read that quote before, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's all I've got. And there's something else he's got about Superman, but I kind of liked what he had to say because, and he's really right. I mean, a lot of these superhero movies now today are more focused about, worried about, as I think we talked about before, what kind of toys can we put out for
them? That's
somewhat.
Well, no, that's nothing new. I mean, the whole idea of superheroes from day one has been, let's merchandise this.
Right. But as far as a movie goes, I see where he's...
No, and that's
he's
actually
right.
pretty cool. He's right for the most part, although I am going to say, once again, Christopher Nolan's Batman kind of did that. Like everything he said. Like,
yeah, but
he's
you
got
still
the
saw
intimate...
but you still saw toys from it, though.
Sure, but not as much as he used to. Like, The Dark Knight did not have a video game based off of it.
True.
Which is a big deal for... usually big movies like that always have a video game based off of it. They made up for it by doing the Arkham series. Yeah, because Batman Begins didn't make very much money, so they just said, let's not make a video game, and then Dark Knight made more money than God. And they said, oh, why didn't we make a video game for this? I will say, for the most part, I kind of think he's already describing Nolan's movie, but I do like what he has to say. It's like a movie, like when we start getting away from the merchandising and stuff and start making just good movies. And again, I think Batman Begins, especially, and The Dark Knight, especially the first two out of that trilogy, like really...
Tried to do that.
Yeah. And I think they succeeded. I mean, you're going to have merchandise, but I think they really succeeded at doing exactly what he said. So
he was also asked about, they read that you're going to tackle an origins of Superman story exploring Superman's Jewish roots. I don't know if you've heard this one. I didn't even hear this one before. He says, yes, it's something I want to do. I've only discussed this briefly with DC. It's not a work in progress, but there is no denying what the actual origins of Superman are. They've been clouded over through the years. Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, who created Batman in 1933, must have been aware that they created him during a time of rampant anti-Semitism. All this was timed in the shadow of war being raged by the worst anti-Semite the world has ever seen, so I would like to bring it back home.
You know, that brings me back to one of the big issues that I had with Man of Steel was all the Jesus imagery in that movie. I get it. He's like a Jesus, I guess. It just goes back to show if Zack Snyder really understood this character and really understood the origins behind the creation of this character, he'd know that rather than a Jesus story, it's more of a Moses story or a story of the Jewish immigrant. Mm-hmm. Schuster and Siegel, whether or not they had that in mind when they created Superman, I kind of doubt. I think when you make something, you make subconsciously what you know. And they were Jewish, or I don't know if they were Jewish immigrants, but their parents at least were Jewish immigrants. And it was a time of heavy anti-Semitism throughout the world, as well as in New York where they were living. So, yeah, that's actually kind of interesting. I don't know what he's going to do about Superman's Jewish roots, because it always felt like, to me, Superman was more of a symbol of immigrants and Judaism. Like, he was more of a metaphor of that. Whereas in the comics, I don't know, growing up in a farm in Kansas that just happens to be the only Jewish farm in Kansas just sounds kind of ridiculous to me. I don't know. Like,
that makes me laugh almost. I mean,
I'm
sorry,
don't know.
but I shouldn't. Maybe I shouldn't be laughing.
I mean,
at
there
that
might
remark,
be
but
2 or 3, but probably not very many.
I don't know. For some reason, I found that funny.
It just seems a little far-fetched. I know we're talking about a guy that can fly faster than the speed of light and lift mountains, but that's the part that I have a problem with, is his Jewish heritage in Kansas farm country.
Moving on, it seems like Bryan Singer has decided he's not going to return to the X-Men franchise after X-Men Apocalypse only grossed $544 million worldwide, which is a $200 million drop from Days of Future Past that took in $748 million. Of course, Bryan Singer, he's moving forward with his 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea reboot.
Oh,
and he's also taking over the Freddie Mercury biopicture that will star Rami Malek from Mr. Robot, who will play the Queen frontman. But, however, writer-producer Simon Kinberg is working on a new script, basically to try, from what it sounds like, almost, I don't know if reboot would be the correct word, but anyway, try to somehow revive the X-Men universe. The Hollywood Reporter, though, has also come out and said that they say that the X-Men franchise is in flux, and that director Josh Boone's new Mutants movie could possibly be the Fox's next movie in the X-Men universe at the time being.
All right, there's a lot to talk about with that. First off, Deadpool was kind of a fluke. There's a lot of like X-Men spin-offs that came out in the 90s. Most of them are somehow involved with Deadpool creator Rob Liefeld.
And I didn't have it here, but Kinberg's new script that he's working on is in hopes of trying to pull back Michael Fassbender and those 3 guys all back into the whole story mix as well.
Okay, I got more to say then. So,
or at least
like a lot of the 90s stuff, like Deadpool I think was a fluke. Honestly, I don't care about New Mutants. I barely care about Cable, but if he's going to be in a Deadpool 2, fine. I certainly don't care about Legion, who's on a Fox TV show now. Mm-hmm. Certainly don't care about him. If you don't know who he is, you should look up the character. It's kind of stupid. A lot of these 90s X-Men stuff is just really terrible. That was when they got more popular than they could handle, and they just made so many of these things, and none of them were really very good. Now, Bryan Singer leaving, that's a good thing.
Sometimes it's not a bad thing when someone who's been around a franchise finally steps away from it and let new blood come into it.
Well, he's a good director. He deserves more. Look, I love the Marvel movies. I really do. But, I mean, I feel like in this giant, commercialized version of these, I don't think Bryan Singer really fits. Like, his movies, the first 2 X-Men movies, when you watch them and when you remember when they came out, they're kind of a big deal. Yeah, the first movie was low budget. The second movie was well praised by critics. It wasn't as much of a commercial success as Spider-Man. And for that matter, X-Men movies are always less of a commercial success than whatever else is out there.
And with today's crowded market of superhero movies, they don't have where an X-Men movie that used to, like, say, the first 2 came out, there probably wasn't really a lot of superhero movies to really compete with nowadays.
He is kind of a more artistic, auteur type of director, kind of. Yeah, maybe in this world, it's like, it's time to let him go and do other movies. All those movies, the Freddie Mercury movie sounds very interesting. I'd love to see him do a Freddie Mercury movie. X-Men 2, that movie came out in, what was that, 2003?
Something like that.
2003, yeah, because it was between Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2.
Because I believe the first X-Men movie came out, 2000?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was 2003 when the first one came out.
X-Men 2 had that singing where, I know everyone talks about this scene, but the scene where they all hide out at Iceman's parents' house. And
yes.
The whole scene is supposed to be an analogy for LGBT kids coming out to their parents.
2003 is when it came out.
Yeah, and in 2003, that was a big deal. Like, I'm sure it's still a big deal now, but younger kids may not realize how much of a big deal that was in 2003. To even put an analogy, to not come out and call Iceman gay, but to put out an analogy as mutants, an analogy for gays, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, it was controversial.
Here are the movies X-Men 2 had to deal with in their genre for 2003. Ben Affleck's Daredevil, the first Hulk movie in 2003, and The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Oh, my goodness.
Those were the only other 3 movies that they were competing with that year as far as the superhero genre.
Well, in Ang Lee's Hulk, I know like nobody likes it, and I don't really like it either. It's not. I like the idea. I
watched that here a couple months back after you and I had talked about something in a podcast.
Horrible movie.
And I watched it, and it wasn't horrible. It was definitely a different take on what even the 2008.
It's a little ill conceived,
right? It seemed a little odd and weird in places to me.
Yeah.
And it's like I wasn't sure where they were going with it. At the same time, I've seen worse movies.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know if that movie is really necessarily, quote, rewatchable.
No, it's hard to watch.
I'd almost rather rewatch the 2008 Hulk movie before I'd watch that one.
Oh, yeah. And I'm not saying one is better than... I think they're actually both about even. I think the Ang Lee's Hulk, I like what they tried to do with that movie. They tried to really make like an artistic movie out of it.
Almost like an artistic comic book movie.
Yeah.
Almost like taking a comic book and actually realistically taking a page and putting it in that kind of form on a movie. And in some ways it was unique and fun to watch, but at the same time it was a little odd at the same time in my book.
Thing is, like the biggest problem with that movie though is I like that, but at the same time making us wait 45 minutes for him to turn into the Hulk is a bit much. It's like, dude, like put it 30 minutes or 20 minutes in there. At least a couple shots of him. But anyway, like back to X-Men 2 and Bryan Singer, you know, from an artistic level, Days of Future Past really should have been the finale. It was the perfect finale. He changes time and then
reset
at the end,
universe.
Sees all his old friends again. We see the old cast that we haven't seen in years, and it was like a reunion at the end. It was
great.
It was really good. And then they decided to keep going. I don't hate Apocalypse by any means. I think that Apocalypse is a decent movie. It's hardly the worst X-Men movie. It's definitely not. The big problem with that movie, though, is that
the ending was weak.
The ending was really weak, actually. The other big problem with that movie, though, is just that I really don't think the soft reboot works. Like, it sounded like a good idea, but then when you see it in practice, oh, you mean we're just still going to watch these characters
go through the same thing again?
And
I know it's been long enough since we did our last podcast, but have you seen the Logan trailer?
Yes.
Did you like that trailer?
Yes, I did. And actually, it's like, well, I guess Days of Future Past wasn't the finale, but this one will be. This movie looks good.
That looks so good, and I thought it was... I've never seen a trailer use a song where the two almost become one, and it almost like it's a perfect fit for the way they did the trailer and with the song they used. That really worked.
The song they use is Johnny Cash's Hurt. If anyone, you know, which was originally a Nine Inch Nails song, was actually my favorite song by Nine Inch Nails, and then Johnny Cash did it, and it was so much better. It's a very touching song. If you ever get a chance, you should really watch the video for Hurt.
Okay.
It's pretty hard to watch. This movie...
Wasn't that
like this trailer?
Wasn't that like one of the last songs he did, I believe?
Yeah, it was. It was one of the last he did. That was back when, towards the end of his, I almost said career, but towards the end of his life, you know, for, what was it, about 10 years there, he really wasn't very popular anymore, right?
Yeah, he kind of fallen off the radar, if you want to say.
And then he started working with Rick Rubin. Rick Rubin was his producer. Rick Rubin produced a lot of rockers, like I think he did Beastie Boys and all these others. Anyway, Rick Rubin had him covering modern alternative rock songs. Rusty Cage is a Soundgarden song. And then there was another one that he did, and then Nine Inch Nails is Hurt. I remember when that came out, I was like, oh, this old country dude singing Nine Inch Nails. And then I heard it, and I was like, oh my God. This is really good.
That really looks to be a really good movie. I think Hugh Jackman's probably going to go out on a high note with his...
I do too. I really hope so anyway, but that looks like an amazing movie. And Patrick Stewart, this is his last film too.
I have a speculation, because you see that scene in the trailer with him holding a shovel.
Yeah.
His shirt's all bloodied. And that girl comes up and takes a hold of his hand. Could be totally wrong, could be totally
I
misleading.
think I know where you're going with
But
this.
I think that's where he lays to rest Professor X. I really think. Now, I could be totally wrong and he's burying somebody else or it's something completely different. But when I saw that trailer the first time, that's the impression I got. I don't know if you got that same impression.
Yeah, I did, actually. There's a part where...
And if that's the case, that's probably going to be a really touching part of the movie, I would say.
There's a part, it's like the saddest part of the song, but it shows Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart like eating dinner together. Mm-hmm. I love that.
Logan could be, I think, one of those movies that is going to be really good and really almost like a serious type of action movie that is a superhero movie. Problem is, if it is really good as it looks and it's maybe as serious as it possibly looks, we'll never get the award recognition it probably would deserve.
No.
Unfortunately, which is a sad thing. But that's all speculation at this point.
You know, that girl in there, I'm pretty sure I know who she is.
They've came out and said her name is, character's name's supposed to be Laura or something. X-23.
X-23, yeah.
I'm guessing.
Do you want me to say who she is in the comics?
Go
or
ahead.
Do you want
Go ahead.
In the comics, she is, I'm not going to full on say it, more or less his daughter.
Right.
More or less.
That's kind of what I've read.
Yeah. I'm not going to say exactly what she is, just in case I have somebody listening who's, like, really not wanting to know. But, I mean, the problem is, it's like, it's in the comics. Like, if you watch the trailer, you can see there's a part where Wolverine holds his hands up, like he's being pinned down, and he holds his hands up, and a pair of tiny little claws come at him. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's where they're going with her.
I wonder if you see that girl kick ass in that movie.
Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Staying within the, quote, X-Men universe, Fox, Deadpool 2 is supposed to start filming sometime in early part of 2017, but in the meantime, they've also, since we did our last podcast, the director, Tim Miller, who did the first one, even though he hadn't been signed officially to do the second one, although he was expected to return, has dropped out, left because of creative differences with Ryan Reynolds, and also the composer for the first Deadpool also dropped out of the second one. But anyway, that's not the really interesting part. It's now being reported that Fox is moving ahead now with a Deadpool 3 by moving ahead with the Deadpool franchise by developing Deadpool 3 that will reportedly feature the X-Men Force led by Cable.
The X-Force.
The X-Force.
Man, if there's one good
and
thing...
they haven't even gotten the second one in production yet.
If there's one thing that Fox Studios is good at, it's driving a good thing they have into the ground
quickly.
That's what they did with X-Men. Luckily, they had enough good people to, like, revive it. People forget that X-Men was revived, sort of like how in Greek mythology, the Phoenix revived from the ashes. Yeah. The Phoenix, if I may. The Phoenix revived. Phoenix. Get it? Okay, anyway.
Yeah, I get it.
But,
I don't mind a studio looking ahead and prepping for what they possibly want to do next, but to announce it this early,
yeah,
before
it's
the
pretty
second
cheap.
before the second one has even started filming, even though we all know the second one's definitely going to happen, but not even to wait till after it's even wrapped production or even in theaters, just to say, oh, hey, guess what? You're going to get Deadpool 3 too.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cheap and sleazy, honestly. That's their business model, is cheap and sleazy, so there you go.
Real quick, and I don't want to get into this too much, but did you see that video I posted on YouTube about Lisa Simpson being the president?
Yes, I did. I actually have seen that before, and I know where you're going, but yes, go for it.
Actually, the last bit of business here for podcast number 28, dealing in the world of television, the everyone's favorite family from Springfield, somewhere USA.
Springfield, USA, yes.
Yeah, is officially been renewed for a 29th and 30th season. We're talking about The Simpsons, which will carry the show through the 2018-2019 television season. And when it's done, the series will have made 669 episodes, breaking the previous record for a scripted series set 4 decades previous.
Was it Gunsmoke?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which produced 635
They're gonna beat
shows.
Gunsmoke?
But Gunsmoke only went 20 seasons. But that was in the time where shows did 30 to 35 episodes a year.
They're crazy.
So that was a different time. Dan Castanella, who does Homer, put out a quote on Twitter or Facebook or whatever it was saying, "Take that, Gunsmoke. You lost a race you didn't even know you were running." And, of course, that show just recently crossed the 600 episode mark with their latest Halloween episode, Treehouse of Horror. I really hope that by Fox coming out and saying, or at least the Fox television side saying they're going to keep The Simpsons around for at least 30 seasons, I really hope they make the 30th season their last season. I mean, at some point that show's got to end.
I do too.
And why not?
Given the
history.
I was going to say, given the current political atmosphere, if I may.
Yes, I get you.
They could have some pretty good material. It's sort of like South Park last year. They started picking up on this strange political atmosphere that we have now. And they really kind of... South Park, they've been good, but like for years, but like they really kind of... I don't want to say revived themselves because they've still been pretty much on point. They've really had some big, really good seasons these past 2 seasons. So Simpsons could do that too. Probably not to the same extent, but they could.
South Park produces their episodes more. They've got it where they can do it quickly, and they only do 10 episodes a season here. It lasts several seasons, and they seem to be more timely, where the Simpsons are like Family Guy. I mean, they're produced...
It's going to be a year later.
It's going to be time they get them done, and my guess is they're already working on the 29th season as it is, even though the 28th season is not even a half through yet. I wouldn't mind seeing the show come to end after 30 seasons. I haven't watched the show on a regular basis like I used to at one point.
That's kind of the same. I don't watch it on a regular basis.
I mean, if I see it's on a Sunday night and I'm available to watch it, and I see it's one I've never seen before, I will sit down and watch it.
I will say
it's not on my regular rotation.
I will say it is. First off, The Simpsons is the best show ever. I know, like, if you like Family Guy or South Park or Archer or whatever, all those cartoons owe it to and Simpsons. Like, you watch like the best years, which was throughout the
first
mid-90s,
first 8 to 10 seasons.
Yeah. If you watch the best years, they're still funny. If you watch the Mike Scully years, which I used to think were terrible, they're hilarious. I don't know why I thought they were terrible. Like, they're great. They're more like a Family Guy type show at that point. But it's James, you like Family Guy, like this too. It's still a little bit better. I will say, when they went HD, which was after the movie, I'm not gonna say it's a bad show. That's stupid. It's a very good show. But when they did go HD, it's sort of like when Gunsmoke went to color. It became a very different show. Like, if you watch the tone of these shows now, it's a lot more slower paced.
They've almost gotten almost like instead of everything kind of just being a hectic mess to a certain extent, they've become actually almost like a normal type of family situation comedy.
It really,
but in animation form.
To be fair, when the movie came out, that was at the tail end of the Mike Scully years. Mike Scully's fine. It's just like his stuff was really wacky. And a lot of people were like, bring it back to the family era. And then the movie, we saw that. But now everyone's like, it's not wacky anymore. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, you really can't make people happy.
No.
And I'm guilty of that too.
I mean, who'd have thought when that show premiered in the late 80s, 30 years later?
No, 30 is insane.
That show would still be running.
What's funny though is, like, I say 30 is insane, but South Park, they're on like their
season 20th
season.
They're on their 20th season. That's insane too.
What's funny is I'll watch a show from like college and I'm like, like, I love this episode, and then I'm like, this is 10, 15 years old. All the political stuff they're talking about is really old. Like, it's crazy. And for some reason, Futurama never really lasted. That was more niche. I love Futurama. Honestly, Futurama, for me, kind of gives Simpsons a run for its money. It's pretty tough choice to decide which one I like better.
And Family Guy's in this now 15th season, or 15th or 16th season, something like that, which is just nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, for a show that technically got canceled twice. I mean, who'd have thought it'd be on 15 seasons? So then again, TV's got a lot bigger market to deal with than just the networks. It's cable, it's Netflix, it's Hulu now, Amazon. So, I mean, you got a lot of outsources now that they never used to have to compete with.
No.
And so a show like Simpsons and Family Guy, when you really look at the ratings, aren't necessarily once what they were, but they're good enough to win the night.
To keep them going,
That it keeps them going, and why get rid of something that's at least working on Sunday night?
Also, a similar point with these cartoons. I think Simpsons kind of like revitalized the cartoon. You think about it, like Looney Tunes, their theatrical shorts, of course, went on for years, and then they became televised. They weren't as good when they were televised, but
you watch some of the Looney Tunes cartoons now, depending on which ones you watch.
Yeah.
They edit out some of the stuff, which actually makes them funny, but they edit them out to make it more PC. And, it's like, I grew up watching them without them being edited, and I didn't turn out like an idiot.
Some of the edit I get. Like any of the racial stuff I do get.
Well, there's also there's a Bugs Bunny one. Yosemite Sam and Bugs Bunny are running for mayor of the western town they're in, and at the very end you see this horde of people run down and they're carrying this horse and and it says our new mayor, spelled like a mayor for a horse. And they both, Bugs and Yosemite, both look at each other and they're like, huh. So Bugs Yosemite hands a gun to Bugs. Bugs takes it, puts up his head, pulls the trigger. Nothing happens. He gives it to Yosemite's hand. They go to black. You hear a gunshot, and then that's it. Yeah. But they cut that out. As soon as you say new mayor, boom, they end the cartoon. Yeah. So it's like, it's like, come on.
I even sort of get that, like kids shooting themselves
in the head. I understand
where
they're going.
But it's like, I will say though, if you ever get the Looney Tunes, they had a DVD collection, it was unedited.
I bought them.
See, and that's actually okay. Like I do get
same way
when you have it on for kids.
Same way with who owns Tom and Jerry. They brought all those out unedited.
I need to buy those actually.
Just like they aired in the theater or whatever it was.
They tell you this is when you buy it. Going into it, it's more for adults and kids today.
They made them for adults at the time, especially the
They
Looney
did,
Tunes.
yeah. That's the thing. They made them for adults. Kids watched them because they were unsupervised, and then those kids grew up, demanded them on TV, and then threw their kids in front of them. I mean, that's really all it is.
I mean, to me, that was Saturday morning.
Yeah, me too.
Granted, you could sleep in, but knowing at 9 a.m., at least at one point for me, waking up even as a teenager, waking up, making sure your ass was up and out in front of the TV in the living room before 9 a.m., before Looney Tunes come on, because it would run for an hour and a half. That was my Saturday morning.
Simpsons, eventually that's going to be thought of as a kid show, and they'll have to edit some stuff out.
Same way with Family Guy and all that crazy.
Family Guy would be a little harder to make it. You could still edit the dirtier jokes out and make it a good show, I think.
And I'm going to make a slight change in point here, but you see a lot of these new shows on nowadays, and if you watch them on DVD, if you buy the seasons, for example, Big Bang Theory, if you watch them on DVD, none of those episodes run any longer than 20 to maybe 21 minutes, depending if you look at the date that they aired, because they aired in ratings.
No.
And then you watch them on reruns, like on cable. I won't mention the network that it's on cable, but sure. if you watch, you know what I'm talking about. They cut parts out still.
Yeah. They cut them out for commercials.
They cut them out for commercials. It's like these shows are already short enough as it freaking is.
There's another thing. Not only do they cut them out for commercials, but Simpsons, they were really bad about this with cartoons like Simpsons for syndication. Not only do they cut out scenes and jokes and lines out to make time for commercials, they also speed the show up.
Yes.
They speed it up by, I think it's 0.25 of a second or something like that?
People have accused the same network that Big Bang airs on syndication on cable for doing the same thing to Seinfeld.
They speed it up and
so they can get more commercials in.
Yeah, and that's all it is. They can fit one more commercial in, and when you watch it, you don't notice it until you do notice it, and then you can't undo it.
Yeah.
And it's like everything is just unnatural. It's just weird.
To me, those shows are short enough as it is without the commercials as they originally made. It's bad enough we get all these commercials as it is.
Well, there's a reason why this stuff's going away.
I get it.
One of these days, we're going to get commercials in Netflix and Hulu, though. So,
well, you already do get commercials in Netflix or Hulu unless you take their...
You have to pay a little extra.
Yeah.
Which is totally worth it.
Yes, it is. Any final thoughts on anything we've talked about today? I know this has been a little bit of a longer podcast.
That's okay. We're talking about Simpsons. I love that show. No, not really. I can't think of anything offhand.
I think one of these days we really need to sit down and do the top 10 episodes of Simpsons.
I would love to do that.
We need to go. Of course, that's going to take a little bit of going through to figure that out. But
yeah, I'd love to do that. We can each have our own lists.
Yeah, we ought to do that sometime. That'd be great. Any final thoughts?
No, I think that does it.
Doctor Strange and A.
Oh, Doctor Strange and A.
Mel Gibson can bite Marvel's ass, as far as I'm concerned. Love your movies, but yeah, stop your complaining. Fox, stop trying to put out sequels that haven't been made yet. I mean, come on, guys. Let's think clearly here. But then again, we're talking about Hollywood. Where can people see your stuff there, James, on the True Believers?
On the YouTubes. It's on, it's True Believers. I've got a Facebook page, YouTube page. Eventually, I get that website up and running again.
Cool. And of course, as always, as I've always said, you can find links to James's stuff on Reggie'sTake.com. Check out his latest podcast about the worst movie ever.
Oh, man. Did you like that movie? I love that movie. I'm not going to lie.
You know, I'm trying to wrap this up, but you just reminded me, I came across in something before this podcast that there was actually a color version of that movie out.
Really?
On Blu-ray.
Really?
And it's like, oh my God. It's like, almost want to check it out, but at the same time, I've already seen it, so maybe I don't want to. Yeah, as I was saying, find James' stuff on Reggie'sTake.com. You can always find my stuff on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk at you later.